Greetings everyone and welcome back to bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Anthony Russell here for what is, I think, the first recorded version this season of our new Banners on the Road series. So where it was running with the herd and the bison have now wandered into the mists of time, Banners on the Road is following me on my hockey journey across Britain this season, and we head back to this past Sunday from the 3rd of December in the NIHL National Division game between the Bees IHC and the Swindon Wildcats. Final score is Bees 3, Swindon Wildcats 5. Goals for the Bees coming from Josh Smith, Gianni Vitali and Vanya Antonov. Goals for the Wildcats coming from Colby Tower, Aaron Nell and a hat-trick from Tomasz Malazinski to give the Wildcats the points on this one. Bees coming into this one actually quite heavily short-benched. Both Stead brothers, Harvey and Will, out of this one, suspended. A bunch of other injuries as well. No Britton Priest in net. Brett Shepherd getting the start for the hosts. Josh Kelly out of the lineup as well due to injury. Ty Cathcart called in. Apart from Alfie Druitt, I believe the Wildcats were actually at full roster strength for this game, starting Rennie Marr. And I think the thing that kind of surprised a lot of people was certainly having stood around the sort of Swindon fans, there was a bit of a feel of like we should be all right in this one given how short benched the Bees were. And actually, credit to the Bees, they came racing out of the gate in this one, probably realising that they kind of needed to push Swindon onto the back foot and kind of make them think, kind of get them guessing a little bit as to kind of what was going on. A couple of really big saves early on. One from Rennie Marr where actually sprawling across the line. Actually, James Smith has had to kind of push the puck underneath his pads, sort of behind him, to stop it from going over the goal line after an initial bit of madness, and then immediately the Cats are down the other end and score. Balin Picotti setting up Colby Tower for a blast past the glove of Shepherd there to make it 1-0. But the Bees answering back pretty sharpish afterwards. And it's Brendan Baird shot from the point that comes in, and Josh Smith tips the puck out of the air, down and past Marr to make it 1-1. 2-1 there before the end of the period as the shot bounces off of the pads of Brett Shepherd, and Aaron Nell is all of about 6 inches away to kind of tap that one in, and the most un-Aaron Nell goal you will ever see in that particular one to make it 2-1 at the end of the first. Early response though for the Bees at the beginning of the second period, a goal from Gianni Vitali. My first opportunity kind of seeing him, and I'll talk more about him in a little bit. We'll kind of sort of talk about what we're seeing, as it were, rather than worrying so much about the individual play. But 3-2 almost instantly. Tomasz Malazinski kind of pulling the greatest hits out of the shelf on that one. Less than 2 minutes after that, just takes the layoff pass from Aaron Nell, dangles around everybody and their mother, snipes it bar down. Just the most Tomasz Malazinski goal that you've ever seen. The thing with it though for the Wildcats, and I think this was kind of a lot of their strategy, was they knew that the Bees would be high energy, they knew they would push, and they were just kind of waiting for them to make the mistakes, sort of lurking, just trying that sort of philosophy of road hockey, rather than kind of thinking too hard and trying to do too much pressure. Just sort of waiting for mistakes to be made, knowing that a team coming into this game that had lost 5-6 on the bounce was gonna make those mistakes. Unfortunately, though, just past the halfway point, 30-44, the time of the third goal for the Bees, and it's another tip. Unfortunately, Mogg it comes across the D-man to D-man, Ollie Nags to Stuart Mogg, who puts it on there, and then Vanya Antonov just reaches out and just gets enough of it to tip it down and past Rennie Marr to make it 3-3. And I was standing with a lot of the Swindon fans behind the goal at the sort of the cafe end of the rink in Slough. And there's just this sort of generalised frustration of we're doing this again. We're kind of playing down to our opponents rather than kind of playing to our strength. Why are we doing this? And I think there was sort of a lot of sort of scratched heads, particularly as we got to the end of the second period, 3-3, and the Bees were kind of making a lot of running out of just trying to be relentless with their pressure, just pushing and pushing and pushing, and just kind of really seeing whether anything came of it. And I think it was there. I think there's something to really be said for just how sort of how respectful a performance the Bees kind of put into this one. It more kind of made me ponder just what would have happened now they had more people, because in the third period they did start to tire. There's starting to be some mental lapses. Although the first half of the third period was very, very even paced. Although again the Bees kind of felt like they were just sort of trying to drag the game into the mud a little bit. And that's not to kind of make it dirty. That's not to kind of be chippy or anything like that. But it was very much in their court to stop Swindon being able to kind of do anything remotely free-flowing with the game. And then out of nowhere, when it looked like potentially the game was sort of slowly edging towards overtime, Malazinski from Nell on the power play, and it's another fantastic snipe from Tomasz Malazinski as he beats the puck past the ear of Brett Shepard. Another sort of just, there's no way to describe it really. It was just a top class finish from a top class player, and then pretty much repeats the goal for the fifth inside the last 3 minutes, 57-41. So just over that 2 minute mark to go, game over at that point, and it was all just playing everything out for the just trying to get to the end at that point for everybody. At 5-3, the Bees didn't look like they had an answer really, and they looked like they were out of puff a little bit at that point as well. Ollie Nags got man of the match for the Bees, Malazinski for the Cats. In terms of the Cats, I think they'll be frustrated because this was a very Swindon-like performance. This is what they kind of do a lot, or what their fans kind of feel like they do a lot, which is they will play down to their opponents or play up to their opponents per se. And I think that is a little bit unfair to the Bees in some respects, because I don't think the Bees played badly. I think what probably the issue for the Bees here was that they needed to play a certain kind of game. And actually, it was more Swindon's fault for kind of falling into the trap. The Bees never really allowed them to kind of get out of second gear, never really allowed them to kind of do much in terms of, making sort of some of those long sort of stretch passes that they like to make. And the times that they were allowed to do it, there was a real tell, and they ended up conceding goals as a result of it. The Malazinski first goal being a prime example of that. And I get why Swindon did it, because certainly with the weird sort of schedule that they've had, where they've been training all over the place, no games at home for a long time, although of course we're a couple of weeks away from that. But sometimes you will adjust and will try, especially against a side that has less guys on defence, less guys on the bench in general. Mistakes are going to be made when they get tired, and felt like there was a little bit with the Cats of that kind of waiting for things to happen rather than potentially making things happen, which might have arguably served them a little bit better in this game. I did feel like certainly the Cats had the offensive firepower to kind of get past these kind of things and to just to sort of blow the Bees out of the water quite early. But actually, credit to the Bees, that didn't happen for them. The issue for the Bees in this particular game was that for all of that effort and for all of that energy, it didn't feel like they had much direction in terms of what they were doing. So, dropping Liam Morris back onto defence is common sense. He did it so often for Basingstoke with so many guys out, making sure that you at least have sort of a solid back four, and then, they didn't rotate Ty Cathcart in at all, but basically he didn't get a shift until very late on in the game. But the idea was there. I think the thing I found was that they felt very, very the balance felt wrong inside the top six. So they played a forward line of all their imports, so Vitali, Balaj, and Gabai, and for me that didn't work particularly well, as they then had a second line of Ross Bottom, who, God bless Adam Ross Bottom, he's been snake bitten pretty badly recently, Vanya Antonov, who of course managed to get a goal, and then Aidan Doughty, and the mix just didn't feel right for me. Certainly having had a conversation with Tom Graham, who was colour commentating on this game with Joe Scutt, I think there was kind of the feeling that Antonov with Vitali has worked in the past, and actually maybe what the Bees kind of needed tonight, if they wanted to be a bit more of a direct attacking threat, was having Aidan Doughty on that top line to try and clear a bit of space for Gabai and Balaj, who obviously very clearly work very well together. Now, I don't necessarily know whether it's a case of maybe they just haven't found the exact right role for Gianni Vitali. He wasn't bad. He wasn't particularly game-breaking in this game, potentially where they kind of really could have used somebody to do so, especially where the Cats had pretty much kind of found out, as a lot of teams seem to have done recently, the way to shut down Balaj and Gabai. Now, like I say, this isn't to take away from the effort of the Bees. In terms of the games I've had the opportunity to watch them at home this year, you can't fault the effort, but it's the execution that is letting them down. I've been to Slough a couple of times now. I'm yet to see the Bees win, and it will always be kind of little things. But I think about the Slough game. Where I was there against Leeds the first time I saw them, and they basically got beaten by the best team in the league without a shadow of a doubt. And it was a power play shot that went post back of the keeper and in, right? So just a little bit of bad fortune. And then in the game against Solway, they were down very heavily, pulled themselves back, and then it's another bad bounce. Shot comes off the end boards and falls onto the stick of Craig Peacock. But this time they just kind of got a little bit out-thought and a little bit outworked. And I talk about that a lot, but there's something to be said for playing hard and playing smart. And admittedly, the Bees for a long time did really, really well, but they could have really caused Swindon a problem if they just altered slightly what their attacking focal point was. Ollie Nags, however, was fantastic. He got man of the match for the Bees, and he should have done it. It's easy to give Tomasz Malasinski man of the match for the Cats. It wasn't a great team performance from Swindon, and he scored 2. I mean, you'll see on the highlights, 2 of his goals are absolutely world class, and you can probably say all 3 of them were. And it was really easy on that sort of front. For the Bees, it was much more of a kind of a collective thing that they were doing. But Nags looked really good, really reassured. He'd scored his first goal for the Bees the night before in that loss against Telford. But he was brilliant. He's such a fantastic young prospect. He's really exciting. Obviously, he's not great for the fact that he had to play so many minutes so young, and the fact that the D is so short at the moment. But it was good to see him get that opportunity. Otherwise, that's kind of it for this one. Swindon were probably the better side over the course of the 60 minutes. But I think, if this game had gone to overtime, I probably wouldn't have argued with the Bees getting a point out of it. Definitely not the greatest game I've seen so far this season. I think one the Cats really had to kind of earn. But, that's the way in hockey sometimes. Not everything goes the way you want it to go. Not everything is perfect. Sometimes things just do not come off. Swindon get the points. The Bees are left kind of scratching their head as this losing streak goes on. What are they going to adjust next in an attempt to try and rebound from that string of losses? As for me, obviously, the Banners on the Road will continue. We'll go back to written form for next week. You will see me back home, in inverted commas, as I will be in Basingstoke this coming weekend for the Basingstoke Buffalo and the Solent Junior Devils. My second time seeing the Junior Devils in a couple of weeks. They knocked off Haringey at home the last time I saw them, but how will Harry Cloutman's boys do on the road against a Buffalo side that is on a winning streak, the biggest winning streak the Buffalo as an organisation have had for quite some time? And of course, Wednesday night, 8 p.m, over at youtube.com/banners on the wall is the What's Current stream. All the news, all the action, all the views from around the National Ice Hockey League structure. You can join us there live or, of course, on catch up. Do make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And remember to keep following the track around as Banners on the Road keeps rolling throughout the 23-24 season. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time.